Man, remember when Atlas made Armor Core?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Atlas did not make Armored Core. From Software made Armored
From Software, right. Okay,
Atlas
getting my
published Dark
Japanese
Souls.
obscure game developers.
All right, let me count down.
I don't know if theirs are that obscure.
You know, one of the consequences of following everyone who follows me on Twitter is that the level of, let's just say, shame on Twitter has gone down. And let's just say that there's a lot of stuff that gets retweeted that, man, I wish I didn't have the sense of social anxiety in possibly retweeting the shit that is on my feed. Good for you. Good for you retweeting this Persona 5 very chesty version of a character.
Start the countdown.
Hey, Jeff.
Captain.
Jeff.
What?
What do you get when you cross an owl with a bungee cord?
Gino's gonna kill both of you.
My ass.
Okay.
That's a reference. I think Jeff got that. You got that.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up. Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that big Guido Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and it is time once again to go to 7th Final Fantasy Heaven. We're talking about the Final Fantasy VII Remake once again. This time, we are going to be discussing the back half of the game after last time discussing everything up to Wall Market, so if you do not want to be spoiled on everything from Chapter 10 till the end of the game chapter number you don't get to know because you don't want to be spoiled, leave now. Otherwise, stay with us as we discuss this excellent game and its decisions that it made both narratively and mechanically. So joining me, as always, to discuss Final Fantasy nonsense is Chris ZombiePie Redacted. Hello.
Hey everybody, I'm Chippy the Chickadee, the pro-capitalist chickadee, here to talk to you about Shinra and remind you to advocate in favor of your favorite natural gas and oil company so as that they can frack and dig for oil at your local wildlife refuge. As long as you accept that we are in the end times, you can accept that there's no responsibility to the environment and our obligations to slow down global warming. I'ma smoke till I die, bitch!
We are also joined through, I guess you decided to join us in this endless endeavor, Jeff Rud. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I also enjoy Final Fantasy games and play them sometimes. I was just digging around in my yard. I put fertilizer in my yard. There's a lot of poop in my life lately. Big bags of chicken poop.
Any oil shale in there? I got a good jackhammer that can get that stuff and turn it into crude.
We ain't
Sell it
talking
on
about
the free market,
jackhammers.
bitch.
You've already alluded to enough jackhammer-esque content, so we're good.
We are also joined by regular Deep Listens host, not a host of our spin-off show Off the Deep End like these two chuckleheads, someone serious, M. Palladino. Hello, M.
Hello. That was a weird introduction. I don't know what kind of show you're running here, Gino, but...
Running is a strong word to describe what's happening to my life. I'm on this show. I am a participant. It mostly happens to me. Speaking of which, if anyone wants to disrupt my show with some sort of weird food garbage, please do it now instead of later.
Okay, I'll go. Oh, hey, we're
Nailed
doing
it.
a podcast? Okay, so today we've got Green Ridge Farm all-natural beef snack stick. Gluten-free, no MSG, and from grass-fed beef. So I was told that Slim Jims are probably bad for you.
Yes.
And they're probably bad for the environment. So I got
Yes.
all-natural, grass-fed beef, basically long Slim Jim things. So this is a beef snack stick. This is called mild pepper. Okay?
It's just like long cut. It's
Ugh.
just like tobacco, chewing tobacco, like dip.
It's the eating sound.
The crunching. I toned down the crunching in the edited podcast, and it's still very bad.
Is this Slim Jim shaped? Is this some sort of meat tube, or is it a stick of
This
meat?
is very long. This is like a
That didn't answer my
foot-long
question.
stick.
I'm asking about the flatness, not about the length.
Oh no, it's a tube. It's in tubular form.
Okay.
I wish it was a little bit more spicy. It's just beef.
Okay.
It's a snack stick.
Yep.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, give it your bad star rating, and then we can move on with our lives.
I'm gonna give that a good 4. I would say I want like some sort of chorizo-y, peppery goodness in that snack stick business, or as I like to call it, biznasty. That quality snack stick, it's too long. It's too big. Look at this. Look at this in chat that I just posted. That's a big beef stick.
I'm a vegetarian.
Like there are many things that I can put in my mouth, but that is not a singular meat tube that I can all one bite, all one.
It's like the Tillamook sausages. On the West Coast, you get them. Well, I guess you're on the West Coast, but you're on the shittier part of the West Coast.
Well, if you relax your throat muscles well enough, you can fit anything down in one bite. All right, everyone. Now it's time to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Right?
Don't you have the plug?
Speaking of deep throat, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Deep throating, off the deep end.
Yeah, we do have multiple. Damn it, we do have multiple podcasts to promote our normal plugs. We've got.
Speaking of gag reflexes, Red 13, is he a real playable character? Did they fuck him up? We'll find out.
You can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And also, Jeff and ZP host a spin-off show called Off the Deep End, where they play games that we wouldn't play on the main show. They take the bullets so we don't.
There's a little bit of a gray area now that's developing. It's like, shit, should we play this for Off the Deep End? Or I think Gino or M might want to play this. We had that come up when, what was it, Legend of Legaia? Gino's like,
Sonata.
No, I want to play that.
It was Eternal Sonata.
I thought you also wanted to play Legend of Legaia.
Oh, I do, but I don't think anyone suggested Legend of Legaia other than me. I'm the only person who knows that thing exists.
Anyways, so yeah, we are probably going to record the final episode of our Xenosaga series, episode 3, and then we have a special announcement in terms of the episode after that, but I'll leave the rest in terms of the explanation and the pitch to the more verbose Jeff.
Yeah, we're gonna not play a long game after that. We're gonna touch on like 2 or 3 littles.
Oh, little baby games.
That's it. That's the whole pitch. Yeah, Xenosaga is very long, takes a lot out of you. Gonna touch some things that aren't gonna take 40 hours, half of which are cutscenes. That's the move.
This might have been the most emotionally draining game we've ever played since Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross is a lot.
Or a thing that the people are playing on the Prime show right now.
Vagrant Stories.
That's Game of the Year 2021. I'm calling it.
Nope.
I'm putting my money down. I'm going to New Game Plus it. I'm that invested now.
Just because you read a short documentary on how to play the game doesn't mean you have to keep playing it.
Hades,
I read
huh?
3.
That's going to be your one, huh?
No, I'm just saying that we played Hades this year, so I have a hard time giving it to Vagrant Story when we've already played a game that I think is better than Vagrant Story. But let's instead focus in on Final Fantasy VII Remake. When last we left our heroes, we fell down a hole into the sewer. We threatened violence on Don Corneo's genitalia. He did not take kindly to that. He gave a speech because he was sure he was going to win, and then you fall down his rug. And then you end up in the sewers for Chapter 10, Rough Waters. So it begins the way that the sewer section in the original game began, with fighting Don Corneo's giant, what would you even call it, beast creature? Behemoth-looking thing?
Yeah.
Abzu?
Abzu? Yeah, the big blue monster that shoots water at you out of the sewers.
It's a multi-phase fight.
Yeah.
IIRC.
I mean, it's an interesting way to do that boss. I don't know. I feel like ever since the Monster House, I feel like the boss design gets not necessarily problematic, but it's not quite able to mix the harebrained craziness of like, this is Final Fantasy VII. Everything in this game really doesn't make sense when you put it out of context. But I just feel like that what we're about to play kind of reinforces my belief that I kind of don't like how this game is so pseudo-realistic, like erring towards like photorealism in a lot of ways, because it's just those weird moments like this where it's like, this is supposed to be some sort of blue dog drooling monster thing, and it's just a little
the fidelity is too good for you.
It's not cartoony enough.
I definitely, I feel like I talked about this last time, but this game has a really weird balancing act that it only mostly is able to strike, in which it's trying to take the iconography of Final Fantasy VII, which kind of made sense on the PS1 with like the graphical limitations of that, with this is an Unreal Engine game. It gets worse when we get to Shinra headquarters, and I'll talk about why I think that, but I wish that this was a little bit more, let's say, animated or anime-esque in terms of just the overall look, maybe a cel-shaded look, something that kind of was more directly related to the original game versus like going hardcore, Unreal. We're going to push this PS4 to its limits, which I don't know if anyone else is playing on the PS4. This game literally makes the PS4 sound like it wants to die.
I played it on the PS5, so it's okay.
I played this on a Slim that I bought more or less expressly to play this game, and did not experience the jet engine of like a launch PS4, which I'm familiar with. I don't know. At no point did it rev up in the way that I've heard launch PlayStation hardware do.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
I had no problems with it. I played it on a regular PS4, and I didn't hear anything, but it was across the room, so who knows?
All right, so we fight this blue dog monster thing.
Yeah, you fight Abzu, and then you wander around the sewers for about a few hours. You have to follow what is the dog? Snap? There's
Scout, the little mascot dog.
Yeah, the little mascot dog.
There's some like light environmental puzzle solving.
Yes.
Along the way.
By following him, you flip some switches. This is really a story light section. There's almost no story here. You're mostly just wandering around the sewers. There's good banter between Aerith and Tifa. They get to have a little friendship blossoming in this section of the game, which is cool.
I just want to say, Aerith and Tifa have so much more chemistry than Cloud and either of them.
That is true.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point, Em, is like the relationship between Tifa and Aerith is way more believable, and it's of a higher quality than any of the relationships they try to graft onto Cloud, which is a bit of a shortcoming.
Because as soon as Tifa meets Aerith, she's like, I'm in love with you, and I'm going to fight for you. And I'm like, okay, hell yeah. And then it just keeps doing that. I'm very here for it the whole time.
Yeah, if that would be a pretty nice turn if it's just like, actually, this love triangle is actually, Cloud's not in it. It's just a relationship. Cloud's not involved. I mean, it's mostly because Cloud has like very muted personality at this point in the game. He did in 7 proper. He was much more of a jerk in 7 proper. But like Tifa and Aerith get to have much more characterization in this game than they did in the original. They're not just girl next door and older confident woman. They actually have more personality to them. So the lack of personality in Cloud, even if you punch him up a little bit, just makes it so that the banter between these two more fleshed out characters is going to be more compelling and more charismatic than this guy who just like, in the last section, there was a repeated joke where Aerith was trying to give Cloud a high five and he wouldn't high five because he's too much of an idiot. And then he figures it out in the end and it's a big joke. Like that's Cloud this whole game. It's like Cloud trying to interact with normal humans can't do it. And then other normal humans just behaving normally.
It's like, spoilers, this is a good game. Also spoilers, I talk about my wife a lot. But like, we just got our PS4 back from like our friends who borrowed it for about 6 months. And like, I booted up the game and poked at it for the first time in a while. And she's basically said like every fan Final Fantasy VII thing that she sort of remembers happening because of the way she interacted with Final Fantasy VII media as like a young person is like grafted into this remake. Like all of this abstracted, like they're friends and they got along and how would they have talked if they hung out? It's like, this is how I remember it being, but it's definitely not in the original text. This is a kind of whole cloth reimagined relationship between these two characters, and it's so much better for it.
Yes. I mean, in the original game, like outside of a handful of cutscenes, your party members didn't really interact with each other. They just said the plot and then, moved on. And then maybe they'd have one dynamic piece of dialogue when you encountered a challenge if they were in your party. But there was not like, the sort of banter you get from a BioWare game, where you're walking around and your party members are talking to each other because they can.
Yeah. All that subtext is on fanfiction.net. Like, we had to build it. We did it.
Exactly.
What I'm suggesting is there's like a bunch of middle schoolers that they should be credited in this game, probably.
That's fair.
Actually, everybody, don't you remember when I talked about last time how most of the characters in this game are actually come from a light novel that none of you read, that you probably should have read? Everything came from Final Fantasy VII. The Kids Are Alright, a Turk's side story.
I remember you saying all of those things except that we should have read it. I might have blocked that out of my memory, though.
Can you even get that in
You're
the
going to have to
States?
go to the internet.
Can't.
I'm not going to do that.
It's dangerous there.
There's weirdos on there.
So yeah, this section is basically just a big dungeon. It's a lot of fights. You have to fight stupid crabs that are not vulnerable to physical attacks, which is annoying, and then there's enemies that silence you and put you to sleep. It's an annoying section, I would say. You fight Sahajins, and they suck. And then when you finally escape, you get to a second dungeon, the train graveyard, which also was a lull in the original game, so it's fitting.
Yeah, this just a big corridor between set pieces, these next two chapters, as it were.
I do like how there's a little bit more narrative scaffolding in terms of, like, why is it a spooky train graveyard?
Yes.
You kind of learn about the captured spirits of children, and Aerith even is able to commune with them, which the game doesn't talk about why she's able to do that. But
it's because she's an ancient.
She's a special person. But anyways, which is a lot more than what the original game had. But at the same time, you have to imagine that back when this game, the original version of this game, it had these forced random encounters just so as that you would be able to punch at, tread water, right? I understand why they felt obligated to include these levels, but hot damn do I wish they just went a little bit faster. Because did any of you ever feel like you really needed to buckle down and grind in this game?
No.
Because I didn't. I'm the same. I really didn't feel like, because I did a decent number of side quests, so like the actual utility of some of these larger and more significant dungeons that they had to include, because of course they needed to include it. It was in the original game. But you're right, Gino. This is a slog in some ways. I mean, it's not a slog. It's just a lull, because it's two dungeons right after each other, and they're not exactly the most inspired in terms of design.
I will say it was around this time where I lowered the fight difficulty from normal to, I think, easy, just because the fights are just long. They just kind of aren't really difficult. They just take a long time to actually whittle down the enemies. Even just basic, you walk into a room and there's like some ghosts in there and then you have to deal with them. So it was like this point where I was just about done with trying to grind, and I just reduced the difficulty because I didn't see any benefit to actually keeping it at normal. I don't think there's any reason to grind, and I don't think you're actually rewarded for grinding in very material ways.
No.
You beyond level and weapon stuff increasing, we pass and played this whole game, and for let's say maybe up through this part, frankly, where it's like, okay, we're just kind of fighting and there's no plot. Like, when I have the controller, I would just go slap it back to normal, because I was like, yeah, this feels all right. And my wife would take it, she'd slap it to easy, because she wants plot, and that's totally fine. And this was the point where it's just like, you know what, it's just not worth it. Who cares? I'm not getting a whole hell of a lot out of it. All this is just making the fights marginally longer, it feels like.
Yeah. And, I mean, the enemies in this section, the ghosts are a pain in the ass. They disappear and reappear. They change immunities from physical to magic. There are mechanics there, but like you said, Em, it's not that it's necessarily hard. It just takes a while, every one of these fights. And the story that we get here is that Aerith was a kid who played in this train graveyard, and some of her friends died and their spirits are trapped in the train graveyard, which is kind of, I guess, cool that they try to backfill a story for why there were ghosts in the train graveyard. Because, believe it or not, when trains die, they don't have ghosts. It's a little weird that there are ghosts in the train graveyard.
Try saying that to the Final Fantasy VI train.
That's a great point.
It has a soul.
Say that to the Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy VI train.
Say that to the Final Fantasy VIII train. There's a lot of ghost trains in this series.
Why are there ghost trains in Final Fantasy?
Because Japan likes trains.
But why ghosts specifically?
Because they're haunted.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're spooky trains.
It also doesn't help that the train graveyard has new bosses.
Yes.
That were not in the original one. Well, so Eligor was in the original game, but the weird ghoul boss definitely was not.
The weird ghoul boss is the Reaper, the last fight?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
the giant... Okay. Yeah, that weird Reaper... Like, there are two bosses in this train graveyard. One of them's a big ghost. The other one's a, like, Grim Reaper
Guy on
sort
a
of deal.
chariot.
Yeah, and fighting... You fight, basically, the Grim Reaper who's keeping the children's souls trapped in the train graveyard. And that's, They tried to make a payoff for their story thing that they did in the train graveyard, and that's kind of cool. I like that it's a little bit of a horror game for a bit in the train graveyard. Not like a very scary one, but they try.
It just feels a little too disconnected from the main plot beats, and it's a little too ridiculous.
Yes, definitely. It's just... This section is just too long. These two sections are you could cut one or both of them, or cut them in half in terms of duration, and I think the game would be better for it.
Yeah, they almost feel like this. It was in the original text, so we have to get this in here, and it's like, okay, like, I don't know. Maybe you didn't need to use every single part of the buffalo, as it were.
Or maybe, like, you know, the original sections of these sections took about 20 minutes each. What if your version took 20 minutes each instead of 3 to 4 hours?
Yeah, the downside of taking the first 4 hours of a game and making it like a 25, 30-hour experience, basically.
Yep.
I wonder if it's another case of, like, making it realistic, where they're like, well, a train graveyard has to be huge, so it has to take a while. If they were trying to translate it and it just got out of scope, it's weird.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of the sections of this game, if they had made them smaller, it would have probably served the game better, but I do get that the realism, or like the sense of scale, if you're going to go to the trouble of making the train graveyard with all the mechanics of sliding around the trains and everything, you probably want to have a boss payoff, and you want to have some sort of story beat to justify it. This is your second bite at this apple. So I get all of the allure, all of the reasons why you'd be like, well, we must make the true version of the train graveyard, the perfect version. But, you know, sometimes there were sections of your game that you didn't need to keep. So while I thought that the giant stupid arms on the way to Wall Market was a good thing to keep, I don't think that we needed so much train graveyard. Hey, the giant stupid arms section could have been half as long too, and that would have been fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There was one of those puzzles that took me like 20 minutes alone.
Yeah.
So next, after the train graveyard, we reach Sector 7, and we are getting to the section where Shinra's trying to drop the plate onto Sector 7, killing Avalanche and all of the people there. Yeah. So when you get there, Biggs and Wedge and Jesse are, you know, fighting to get up to stop the Turks, Reno and Rud, from dropping this plate.
I'm going to pause you, too. Before all that happens, like, the first thing that happens when you emerge in this sector is kind of a extended fight, maybe like your first or second one in the game with one of the Spectres.
Right.
Like, the Spectre content slowly starts to increase in ratio to non-Spectre content as we go through here. And you really have to, like, people are like, what the fuck are these things? And you poke around in, like, the codex about them, and I forget what it says.
Does it say plot armor?
It functionally, it should. But yeah,
I'm going to avoid talking about it until we really get into it.
Sure. But they kind of start rubbing your nose, and it's like, hey, I bet something's going on here. Don't you want to know?
Like you're going to get...
I bet you want to know.
You would have been able to climb up faster to stop what's going on, but then the Spectre shows up and slows you down. So you end up basically causing a mass evacuation from Sector 7. Like, when you get there, you tell everyone they're going to drop the plate, get the hell out of here. Which in the original game, it basically just smash cuts to Avalanche trying to stop Reno and Rud from dropping everything. There's no implication that they saved anyone. Like, Sector 7 was just a crater in the ground after what happens here.
Right.
In this version, they basically save all of the characters you care about from the first section of the game where you're doing side quests for these people. So that's a pretty big departure, totally. But then you fight your way up, and as you're fighting your way up this giant scaffolding, which I think is appropriately, like, it's pretty big and also appropriately harrowing. Like, you feel like every time you're fighting someone on here, it's a real problem because you need to get to the top as soon as possible. And because all of us have played 7...
Right.
Oh, Em, you have not played 7?
I have not played 7.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh.
So yours is the most valuable opinion all here, as far as I'm concerned.
That's why I'm here.
So yeah, Em, what did you think going up this section then?
I mean, it was one of those things where I was like, didn't know if the actual original game went and dropped the plate on Sector 7. So I was like trying to decide if this is like a plot thing where I'm actually going to be able to stop it, or if I'm just going to get up there and then something terrible is going to happen. So I was sort of bracing for any eventuality. And then along the way, you see like Biggs and Wedge and Jesse basically all die. Spoilers, they don't actually all die. And that was pretty sad. I know from conversations that we had, you sort of saw that coming.
Yeah.
Something happens to them in the original. So I was like, oh, well, they're going to make me sad about these characters. And then you get to the top.
Yeah, so in the original game, you get like one conversation with each of these three, and they're basically all dying. All of them die in this section in the original game. This is the last you see of them. That's why Biggs, Jesse, and Wedge are not really that prevalent in Final Fantasy fiction outside of this, because they're barely characters. They show up for 2 missions, talk to you like twice, and then they get killed. And it's like, oh no, those characters I barely knew and didn't care at all about. Darn you for killing them, Hironobu Sakaguchi. Damn you. But in this game, though, like...
Here they really lay it on.
Biggs is like, tell my students
Real
at
thick.
the orphanage to dream big. Like Biggs. It's not quite that, but like Jesse's like, I guess I'm not going to be a star on the stage. And Wedge is like, I love pizza.
It's funny because I'm fat.
Pizza.
That's hilarious. Whoa.
Yeah,
He's... Whatever.
Yeah, so like
they
give each of them a death scene basically, and then you fight your way to the top. You fight Reno and Rude. The Spectres get involved to stop you from stopping them. It's a pretty cool boss fight with Reno and Rude. There's a helicopter.
I forget. Can you lose that boss battle by getting paralyzed, as in the original Final Fantasy VII? Because that ended up happening. I forget which one has the ability, like.
Pyramid.
Reno has the ability to put you under like a crystal or a pyramid. Yeah, because that happened to me in the original Final Fantasy VII. I thought it was really cool. It's like, oh, I lost, but no one's dead. You just paralyzed everybody, and that's a game over.
It never happened to me. I never had that problem, so that'd be cool if it did, but cannot speak to it.
I mean, he did use that ability, but it didn't end the fight. He only does it to one person, and then you can just break him out.
Yeah. Anyways, no, yeah, it's a cool fight. It's this... It feels like it's leading to a climax, and then the game keeps going.
Well, I mean,
I get it. This happened in the original game where it's like, wow, here's this climactic event
in Midgar.
Let's spend 4 more hours in Shinra, or dealing with Shinra. But in this game, Gino, you have to give it to me. It's a bit more egregious because the game keeps doing that.
Yeah, so this is not the part that made me feel like this game should be over. I thought that this game would continue because there's the part where you leave. I'm like, it has to end when you leave Midgar, right? That has to be when it ends. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, the game faked me out 3 times over the course of the game. This was not one of them. I did not expect that it would end right here, but we will get to that.
Yes. So you zip line away, as that was the way you escape in the first game too. There's just a lucky zip line.
I don't know, Em, if you want to see something that's the most like PlayStation 1 aesthetics ever, go look up the original footage of them riding that zip line, because it's like about 28 or 29 polygons in the crude shape of people flying away from an FMV of like a disaster happening behind them, and it's really fucking funny.
Yeah.
Compared to this.
Which is also kind of funny.
Sure.
It was very strange that there was a zip line there. Also, at the end of that battle, there's a timer that starts where you have like 30 seconds to escape before the plate drops. I couldn't find the zip line because it's so fucking dark in this game, and I had no idea what they were pointing me to. And then the timer dropped to 0, and then nothing happened. And I'm not sure if that's a bug or not. I feel like I should have died there, but who knows?
At a certain point, Sakaguchi just like walks on your TV, be like, "Hey, like you had your fun. Like you really need to go now.
Leave.
Like,
You gotta
You're not
go.
wanted here."
You gotta
As
go.
long as I'm on
gotta
this
do the
thing, the
scene.
plate won't drop. I'm saving everyone.
That's the end of the game. It's like a near automata win condition. It's just like, congratulations, you saved Midgar. Like,
I guess it is important that there's a video message from Sang in which he talks about how he has Aerith captive, and this is when you find out that Aerith officially is an ancient. She's not a human. She's an ancient.
she's not people.
She's not people. She doesn't
I
have
mean,
a soul.
Do they not have souls, ancients?
I'm being an asshole.
Cats have souls. Cats ain't people. Don't be
We
mean to cats.
I'm sorry. Biggs died for those cats. No, Wedge died for those cats.
You don't even care about Biggs and Wet. Okay.
I can't tell the difference.
Well, sure, one's fat and funny because he's fat. Anyway,
That's the
everyone's
joke.
favorite joke.
Also, that fake out where the plate is falling and Wedge is just down there with a handful of cats, that was pretty fucked up. That actually made me very upset. And then, spoilers, they walked that back pretty quick.
They sure do.
But for like an hour there, between when you find him again, I was pretty sad because a bunch of cats died and also Wedge was there.
Yeah, they make you care for those characters that you otherwise would not have cared about.
Yep. I mean, I have no context for who these people are. So,
Well, there's very little context if you were playing the original game.
Sure is.
So you go through the zip line. I think this is when Barrett just goes absolutely apeshit because he thinks that he's lost Marlene.
Yes.
And I think Cloud's like, maybe she's at Aerith's house. Let's go to Aerith's house and wait for the heat to die down.
I don't know how he figured that.
I don't know either. I really don't know. Like, does Marlene even know who Aerith is?
I feel like they
sure
hand-waved this in the game too,
Yeah.
like the original, but
someone was like, hey, go to the bar and get Marlene. And Aerith goes off, and then the next you hear of her, she is captured by the Turks. So I don't know why you wouldn't just think, hey, I think the Turks also have Marlene, because she didn't say anything in the video to the effect of, hey, go to my house.
Yeah, and so you end up going to Aerith's house, and then you talk to her mom, and her mom basically brings you up to speed that she's not actually her biological mother, that she adopted her after seeing Aerith's mother die in front of a train, if I recall. And
again with the train.
Back to the train graveyard.
But I felt like this was one of the more powerful scenes in the original game, and it's still good in this game, but I personally really like the PS1 version of Aerith's theme. I feel like the low poly sound of Aerith's theme just still kind of gets me. It's very good in here. Aerith's theme is very good here, but there's something about that crackly, warbly, MIDI music.
That's interesting, because I have the Advent Children and Crisis Core version of it as like my sort of thing, and it gets me a little bit choked up there.
So that's good to know that it still has the same effect.
Mm-hmm.
So now we basically decide that we need to save Aerith, even though half of Midgar is basically completely destroyed at this point, like an entire quarter of it. If you try to visit that area, it's just blocked off, right?
You can sort of like, I think you get to go back a little bit, but then you like fall in a hole, and that's a whole thing.
Is this when that you kind of find out that Aerith had like a weird relationship with Zack? It's like the Turks didn't want to come after Aerith because like Zack was protecting her, or like they were afraid of Zack, or is that later? I forget how much of that they share.
I don't know if we hear anything about that, because as far as things go, Zack isn't brought up until like that whole thing.
Yeah, I think that there might have been some scaffolding in that, but anyways. This is also when you start dealing with the Turks a lot more. They make a couple of cameos and weird pop-up appearances from time to time. And I think this is when, and you were kind of hinting at it, you go to the Sector 7's ruins and you find out that everyone's okay.
Everyone lived. You saved everybody.
Which
all their houses are destroyed. But
I'm of two minds about it. Like, this is the real point in which the game, for someone who played the original Final Fantasy, and this is the first, like, wait, what the fuck moment, where it's like, whoa, this is not the way that I remember Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, and yeah, sure, the Spectre battles were also there, but this was a huge moment where it's like, wait, Wedge isn't dead? Like, what?
Spoilers.
And I don't know if it was, like, actually a good thing to do.
What happens in the original?
They're dead. They are dead.
Dead, and the subject is barely revisited.
Gone.
Yeah, it's a very finite, or final, I guess I should say.
What was your reaction to like the holy shit, these characters are still alive, Jeff?
This was the point where I was like, okay, there's a lot I don't know about like what direction they're gonna start laying down the train track for this thing to keep going on, to stick with trains, I guess. This was the first thing I was like, okay, so they've actually made a couple decisions already. And this is like the start of those decisions. it got me like, okay, so there are some weird semi-sacred cows that they're gonna fiddle with. Maybe they'll fiddle with some more. They do. Spoilers. So I don't know. Conditioned me to start expecting the unexpected.
So you fall down a hole.
We fall down a hole.
Again, there are a lot of falling down holes in this game.
Yeah, and there's like weird moments where you can like accidentally fall into these holes and then find yourself in a real messed up spot. Because, and I think your live streams kind of reminded me of this. It's really easy to get lost at this point in the game, and it's also really easy to like, hey, I'm in this pit. I don't know how to get out. How do I get back? Wait, what?
Part of that is it's so fucking dark.
It is
and whenever
dark.
you fall in
oh my god.
You go
I thought it was my monitor for a while. I almost felt like I needed to increase the gamma so as that it was a little bit easier to see, but
yeah, there are no gamma options in the game itself. So I don't know what the like actually doing it on the TV maybe you have to do.
I have a feeling they wound up doing that. It's been a while, but it is dark, and also this portion of the game, like circumstances of it aside, is like very nondescript sort of corridor sewer sort of environment. Like it's very unattractive. This is a game with like the ugly door still. But like it's very like you go past the playground, I guess, in this part where it's like all fucked.
Yeah.
But I remember just like kind of everything between this and going to Shinra being like, I'm in some sort of industrial corridor. There's a lot of concrete. Great. Maybe they should carry some flashlights around or some shit while they're down here, because this is terrible.
The visual variety definitely takes a backseat, so is that you can have these weird character moments of the characters basically trying to get out of the slop.
Just everyone standing around being like, Jesus, oh my god, wow.
Oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really bad. They just killed all these people. Oh, wait, all the characters that are important to the story are still alive. But a bunch of people probably died. Yeah, so you end up finding Wedge. Wedge seems a bit messed up. He seems hurt. Oh, this is when Cloud has his first flashback, like a real significant flashback to where he gets a wave of memories. He's in a testing site, and there's the weird ghostly things, the ghosties. And you have to deal with the specters again before you can continue with like getting Wedge some medical attention. Spoopy.
What does it mean?
I seem to recall like if you scan those ghosts, you get a few clues about like what they might be about. But then again, don't scan. It's a waste of a fucking turn.
I don't know about all that.
Anyways,
tells you their weakness.
Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa drag Wedge's ass to Elmira, which again seems like a real raw thing to do. Elmira, her adopted daughter's been kidnapped by the evil corporation that's basically killed a quarter of the city's population. It's like, yo, here's this dude that you've never met before. Can you patch him up, please?
Also, you're babysitting a 6-year-old.
Yeah, you already got a 6-year-old. Here's a dude. Just fucking get him back to where he needs to be. Like, hey, by the way, we're going to ask your permission to rescue your daughter? That's a real weird scene. Like, they basically, it's like, Cloud asks Elmira, I would like to ask for permission to rescue your daughter from being kidnapped. And it's like, brah, you are probably going to do it anyways, so...
I mean, yeah, save her, please.
Save her? Sure,
what
go
do you
ahead.
want? Do you want a reward or something?
And this is a weird part where Elmira says, I need some time to think about you possibly saving the life of my adopted daughter. Stick around. Just chill here for now. You hear footsteps on the outside. You go out, and this is what I think was a point of differentiation. This is where this game's affection mechanic kicks in, where you can either get Aerith, Tifa, or Barrett to appear here.
You can get Aerith to appear here?
Yes, you can get Aerith. I think she says, because I got Aerith my first time, and then I ended up getting Tifa my second time. I did not get Barrett, although that would have been very funny.
I'm like 99% sure it was Tifa for me, but I'd have to go check the tape from a year ago. I don't recall.
It is a better
Tifa.
scene if you embrace or you get Tifa's resolution, because like Tifa is ripped up. She is not happy. She is emotionally compromised. She just flat out breaks down, and then Cloud actually basically hugs her and says, okay, we're going to get through this together.
We're going to get your girlfriend back.
We're going to get your girlfriend back. It's actually one of the few times where it feels like Cloud is understanding of an emotional state of another character that's not thank you, fuck you, bye. The one with Aerith is a bit more interesting in that Aerith is communicating you using an apparition, and you just see her like basically in Will-o'-the-Wisp form. And it's like, okay, so this is what's gonna happen. Oh, by the way, if I don't see you and I die, it was cool. Chill. Bye. Peace. I'm a ghost. But she does actually say something really ominous in that she's like, by the way, don't fall in love with me. I think that something bad's going to happen. And Cloud's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that if you fall in love with me, it's just going to lead to heartache. I looked into the future. And Cloud actually even says, are we even in a relationship? And she's like, I'm going to go away now and leave that to you to think.
I'm going to leave that to the fan fiction to figure out.
So the affection system in 7 was just basically do something, and then during 1 or 2 points in the game, you will go on a date with a character. If you pick Tifa, there's a special scene at the end of the game where it's heavily implied that you boned outside in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Hold on.
At the arse end of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten that until we replayed it.
There's also a point where the game just straight up says shit. Remember that?
I don't.
Sid Highwind says the word shit.
Yeah. Spoilers for 25-year-old game or whatever, but yeah, at the very end, it's like, you know, you're getting on the airship or whatever to go do like the last thing, and it's just you and Tifa chilling, and it's just like, hey, we could probably die. Have you played Saints Row 4? Like the options where you can just like talk to person or have sex with person. Like there's literally just like a have sex with blank button. It's that basically. It's treated with about all the aplomb that button uses.
I see.
It's like a relationship arc in the early PS2 Persona games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Smash cut to black. You probably had sex, but we're not going to show it. Anyways, so Elmira wakes up and she says, yeah, go ahead and rescue my daughter, I guess. You're probably going to do it regardless. Barrett basically says, oh, by the way, I'm going to leave my adopted daughter if you're going to keep Wedge, so have fun feeding 2 extra mouths. Yeah. We're not going to give you any extra money to deal with this, so
we know you're going through a lot. You should probably just keep yourself busy. Here's a wounded man. Have fun.
Here's a wounded man and a 6-year-old girl. That'll be fun in an area that seems pretty impoverished, and I have no idea how you're making money.
It's from flower sales, because they have the only flowers in the area.
And then, so you go up, realize that the trains aren't running, and so Shinra's basically got the entire area on lockdown. You need to find an alternate route, and for whatever goddamn reason, Tifa says, hey, you know who could probably solve this problem and help us out? A person that we can totally trust to solve our current problems, probably not backstab us? Let's go to Don Corneo. I just remember saying,
that guy.
Bitch, what? Do you not remember the last time we had our interaction with Don Corneo?
We left on such good terms. I think he'll be really accommodating. And then you do that.
Which is a bit of a pain because you have to kind of go a surreptitious route to get there, which is kind of shitty. Again, the parts where you play this game, and I know we haven't talked about the mechanics, but this game gives you a lot of loot trash. Definitely by about this point moving forward, you just get a bunch of just trash. And I think I talked to you about this on your Twitch, M, but I'm kind of not enthused by the node-based leveling mechanic just because there are certain nodes on your characters like weapons or their skill tree, so to speak. And it's like, hey, I bet that node over there is pretty good. How the fuck do I get there?
It is a very strange menu because you have to like bounce between nodes and there are all different points in the node, which you have to do it for every single weapon basically, unless you set it to do it automatically.
Which you should do.
I mean, I did it because at a certain point I was like, I don't give a fuck what you pick. Just fill it out. I have to do this for 20 weapons for 4 different characters. I was done with it.
Yeah, that's the important thing is like, leveling up each weapon, leveling up the materia, it starts to, by about this point, it starts to really feel just busy work with very minimal gain or positive movement. I don't know how you felt about it, Jeff.
I'm sick and broken in the head, so I at a certain point, it's funny because there's this division of labor where Ashley plays the games and then she's like, this is getting kind of hard. Go do menu shit. And then I'm like, I get to play them in. So I left the weapons pretty much on manual fuck around with business for most of the game. But at a certain point, I turned that off. It's just like, you know what? The auto is doing what it needs to do. It's fine.
The auto will get you to the end of the game without much trouble.
Yeah, like, this is going to sound dismissive, and it's not. This is a game that was made for millions of people to play and get through to see the end of it. It's not going to be hard to get through. I don't need to, optimize. So.
There's only, I can count on maybe one hand the number of bosses that I felt like I had to play more than 3 or 4 times. There were a couple, especially near the end, where it's just my play style is so reckless where I wait until the last minute to heal, and that's on me, not the game. I don't know. Yeah, I think that one of the reasons why I was never really fully enthused by the leveling mechanic in this game is that it starts to become very automatic. It feels like, oh yeah, I gained a point. It doesn't really feel special anymore. And then plus, like, all of the stuff related to the weapons and actually attaching materia, it's just fiddly. It's a little fiddly. Like, especially, like, managing the amount of weapons that are in this game sometimes.
Yeah. I forget the name of it, but it's like there's a materia in this game that's like the Embiggen spell ability in, like, D&D, and it's described so shittily that it's, like, hard to parse that's what it's doing. But if you pair it with spells that, like, increases their, like, splash radius or basically makes your magic gooder, but the description on it and, like, the name of it would lead you to think that's not what it is. And it's killing me that I don't remember this.
You're thinking of the one that makes your cure spells, like, hit every character.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, that is it.
What was that called? Because
it's just called all in Final Fantasy VII parlance. An example of a crude translation being a better one, maybe. It's just like, oh, I pair fire with all, and it hits everyone with fire.
Right.
But yeah, I am the asshole that gets into the weeds and likes to play around with that stuff. So even if I did not need, like, a super optimized build to get through this, I feel like I had a pretty good build getting through this game at a certain point.
Well, remember, Jeff, if you got all in the original game, that was how you broke the economy in this game, because a level 5 all you could sell for bananas amounts of money.
Yeah, I knew that when we immediately started playing FF7 after we played Remake, because Ashley was like, I have to see this whole thing again now. We were going to have some fun with it.
I bought that fucking house, Jeff, in Costa del Sol. I bought that house.
With that all money?
Hey!
Welcome back.
Hello.
Hey, so we got to about, let's ask Don Corneo for help from where you were last here. Tell us everything about how you feel about all of that huge, meaty chunk of the game.
Okay, so...
the juicy, jam-filled center of the donut.
Okay, so the takes that I wish I could have been there for. First off, when you go underground and find deep ground, that fucking sucks shit. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Wedge is alive.
Not very good.
We did not talk about deep ground. That's a good point.
Wedge being alive underground
undoes a lot of the emotional weight of the previous scene. So yes, we did talk about that.
And then you go to a science facility that's clearly deep ground from Dirge of Cerberus, which is terrible. Like, hey, Shinra, who has like 7 different secret, super secret military organizations, had another one that we didn't even know about. Like, the Turks, Soldier.
Well, Gino, didn't you notice that the train graveyard, they used the Dirge of Cerberus version of the train graveyard, but it's slightly the floor plan of the train graveyard from Dirge of Cerberus?
See, like, as the person who likes Dirge of Cerberus the most out of all the people here, I was like, yes, roll it back in. It's a good game.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I can't believe that I'm going to be the middle moderate vote between you two about Dirge of Cerberus.
Oh, that game rules.
No,
it's not even very good, but
no,
it rules.
They took... So if there's anything about Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus that it taught me, is that what Tetsuya Nomura thinks I care about in the Final Fantasy VII universe is clearly not actually what I care about in the Final Fantasy VII
so how
universe.
Jeff feels about Dirge of Cerberus, that's how I feel about Crisis Core, so I will fucking fight you.
Crisis Core's good.
You guys don't understand. None of the games that you're talking about outside of Dirge of Cerberus has a Space Harrier section, so they all suck, shit, and are terrible. And Dirge of Cerberus is the only good one, because it's the best fucking game.
Remember how there's multiple endings as if it's like Shadow the Hedgehog?
Yeah, that's... When I think of multiple endings, I think of Shadow the fucking Hedgehog. That's the reference point. Okay, so yes.
So what else other you don't like Deep Ground and you think it's bad, even though they're probably going to make a Deep Ground game if you saw all of the trailers that they played after recording the first
I just hate everything about, like, we have the Turks, we have the soldier, we have the bioweapons unit, we have all the people in charge.
So when we went to Elmira,
okay.
Gino, who was your confidant? Who was your relationship? Who did you hug?
What?
Remember how, after you talked to Elmira and she's like, I need to think about whether or not you want to save my daughter from being kidnapped by this evil corporation who are probably going to kill my daughter. I need to think about it. You can either have Aerith, Tifa, or Barrett among Aerith's flowers while you spend the night at Elmira's house. Who did you get?
I think I got Aerith.
ZP says based on, was it the relationship meter?
Yeah, there's an affection mechanic.
I don't know how the affection mechanic works. I got Aerith, I think. She showed up as a ghost and told me to not fall in love with her.
Yes, oh. I did tell people about this. I also got Tifa, and it's actually a really good scene.
Does Aerith not show up to tell you to not fall in love with her?
No, you can get Tifa or Barrett.
I got Tifa.
What happens?
Yep, and
so
I got
briefly
Tifa.
Rewind this. The Deep Ground thing, because this came up when we were talking about Wedge being like alive, retconned. What's the meaning of Wedge being brought back here? It's like the broader implications of they're gonna start changing shit. But you combine that with there's Dirge of Cerberus shit in here too. It's like, okay, they're doing it. They're going to make the cigar. They went to fanfiction.net and they just took it all and they're gonna put it all in here.
Yeah, when that happened to me, I was like, oh great. The person who I trust the least to make a coherent story has decided he has authorial control. Goody.
Going back to a thing ZP said, Larry Bird is not walking back through the door. This is who you got.
So around this time, I was feeling like, oh, good, they're starting to come up with, ways to get themselves out of having to retell the same Final Fantasy story beat by beat. That's kind of cool. But oh no, they're going to use this rope that they've fashioned to hang themselves. Oh no.
I would just say, to the game's defense, like I said, Larry Bird is not walking through that door, Gino.
No.
And also, it's done pretty well here for the most part.
Oh, yeah,
you even have that flashback when you find the Deep Ground part, and it's actually a really well done flashback.
Yeah,
I would just say the one thing that I thought was bullshit was bringing Wedge back and completely ruining the emotional resonance of the impact of the plate being dropped and possibly killing all people. Those cats should have died, Em. Those cats should have died.
Is a really
cats
harsh
would have
word
lived anyway.
that.
They would have
the
survived.
Cats would have gotten away.
Kitties would live. Want to be very clear. Kitties would have made it.
I didn't mind Wedge living because I thought that was a story beat, we're going to use Wedge for something cool. He can die later, that's fine. And then the Deep Ground stuff was like, oh no, they decided to bring up one of the worst things that they added to the Final Fantasy mythos after 7. Goody. They're going to focus in on this. Cool. Awesome.
Deep Ground is pretty fucking dumb, to be clear.
Hey.
Oh, it's very stupid.
If Episode 2 introduces Kadaj, I'm fucking in. I am in. I am in.
No. Fuck Kadaj. Fuck Lazu.
I think where we were just at, it's like, so Tifa says, hey, we need to rescue Aerith. The person that we should trust is obviously Don Corneo.
Yes, you need to get Don Corneo's help. You try to go back to Don's place, and you get to see Wall Market during the daytime after this tragedy, and that's kind of cool. Wandering around Wall Market, seeing all these people in shock after that happens. You can also do a bunch of side quests, soon after this that are fine. So you meet, who's the gray-haired guy again?
Leslie.
You say hi to Leslie. Leslie says, I'll help you find the Don, but you got to do something for me first. And then you go down to the sewers, because... Fucking, of course you do.
Of course you do.
Lots of sewers.
Level in the game, and they make you do it twice. So nice.
So you go down to the sewers, you find a room. Leslie wants you to find the Don so that he can take revenge on him, but I don't know, it doesn't work out. You have to fight Abzu a bunch, and Abzu's kids you have to chase a bunch, because Abzus reproduce asexually. They reproduce by budding. It's like a sponge. And then you find Don Corneo. He has a nice fun reveal again. Tells you what's going on and where Aerith is, and that she's in the Shinra building. Shinra's going to move to the Promised Land. You find out Leslie was engaged to someone.
Can we talk about that weird backstory? Because why is that important?
Well, Leslie, this character that I don't care about, was engaged to someone who then was entered into the Dawn's wife contest, and then she vanished forever.
Is this that novel that you're always talking about, ZP?
Yeah,
Is this
in
part
the
of that?
original continuity, in The Kids Are Alright, he stayed in the Midgar slums after Meteorfall, and he settled down with his wife. Her name is not Marl. I think it's like Myrrh or Merle.
Myrrh.
That's when you meet two characters that also come up. You meet Kyrie and Evan Townsend.
Kyrie's there?
Kyrie.
Yeah, Kyrie is definitely in the visual novel. You have to investigate like a murder that turns out to be Kadaj.
He's the murderer? He's a bad guy? He's a bad murderer?
Kadaj found dead in Miami?
Well, I'm just excited to know that the Kingdom Hearts universe clearly extends in here since Kyrie's here. So, yeah, you meet the Dawn. The Dawn says, Leslie, I was going to give you a cut, but now that you drew a gun on me, I'm going to shoot you in the head. And then Cloud's like, no, I have a big sword and I'm going to put it to your neck, even though you've got a gun. And then Dawn tells you his deal and he gets away again because he has to show up in Wutai in later episodes.
And probably one of the worst scenes of Final Fantasy VII. Let's not talk about it.
Yep, you'll get to learn that the first time. So.
And then Leslie gets a ticket.
Yep.
A train ticket to like his wife, or is he just leaving?
He's just leaving. Who cares about Leslie? No one does. So we get out of the sewers. Once we escape the sewers, it's time to go to the Shinra building. They give you... So the secret to getting to the Shinra building is grappling guns. So you get grappling guns. You can decide to do side quests or not. I did the Angel of the Slums side quest, which involves hanging out with the not Yuffie character with the big hat, who's very energetic and spreading propaganda.
Yeah.
This was the point where I said, I'm not fucking around with any of these side quests. I'm just going forward.
Good call.
I did all of Chadley's stuff.
I did nothing. I was like, where's the exit? Let me out.
I did all but one of the side quests, and I know this because it's like one of the achievements that didn't grok, and it's one of the like, if you do things different in Wall Market, you get different things to do. I don't remember if I did everything for Chadley, but I did most of it. Again,
you find out a lot
way.
of stuff about Chadley before you find out what the deal is with Chadley.
Would you like to tell us what the deal is with Chadley?
Something goes wrong with Chadley to imply that he is not a human.
Is he a robot boy?
He's a Hojo robot clone thing.
That's not revealed until later, Gino. You in good time, young man.
It's fine. Who cares? He's not a people. He's a robot Hojo clone.
This is like your fascination with Chocolina. Like it's interesting and it doesn't matter.
Oh man, meow meow choco chow.
Nope.
No.
Not even once.
So most of the side quests don't really matter all that much. Like it turns out the Angel of the Slums is the old lady who tells you about the Angel of the Slums and who's always showing up everywhere.
Fucking obviously.
Yeah.
When the side quests were in service of exploring new environments, I felt like they were a lot more rewarding. But now that you actually have like eye in a prize moment, like, hey, yo, we got to rescue Aerith. The side quests, I did them out of obligation. Like, I wanted to leave no stone unturned, but at the same time, like, they feel far less rewarding because you're really not seeing new environments. You're really not preempting yourself into locations that you'll later encounter because its target is Shinra HQ at this point.
They do very little to like enrich the overall Final Fantasy VII world beyond giving you like more shiny baubles to like throw around inside of it. Basically.
And like I said, and Gino, I guess you missed this. The leveling of this game by this point, it gets very fiddly.
Yes.
The amount of weapons that you get is overwhelming. Needing to put the materia into the correct slots, it gets kind of annoying. And if you do too many of the side quests, which I did do, you get a lot of shit.
Yeah, you don't need most of the stuff that this game gives you. And at this point, I actually turned on auto-leveling for my weapons because I just didn't care anymore. I was like, actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what, just make it go up, make the numbers go up. I don't care how you do it. It'll be better. It doesn't matter what comes first. Eventually I'll get everything. And did you discuss, I don't know if it's a side quest, the weird thugs, the goofy thug characters come back with a new recruit at some point. Is that a side quest or is that main quest?
Are they
in the
part, right?
sewers?
No, that's required.
Yeah.
The guys who you meet with the in the
masks?
robot arms section.
Robot arms? Yeah.
They get a new recruit at some point, and you fight them with this giant biker man, and I enjoyed that part. I'm glad that they get to come back.
They're funny.
Yeah, they're a nice addition, unlike Biker Soldier, who shows up for 5 minutes and then never shows up again in this game.
That guy was so
This is
weird.
when you get the most important choice in the game. Do you charge Shinra Building or do you go up the stairs?
Well, no, before you do that, there's an entire dungeon before you get to the Shinra Building
Ah.
where you have to climb up the rubble of Sector 7 with grappling
Which,
hooks.
admittedly, this is way better than what it was in Final Fantasy VII because, jumping the thread or
The shiny wire of
might
hope?
have been the shiny thread of hope.
The shiny
That
wire of
might have
hope.
been the worst level in Final Fantasy VII other than the Temple of the Ancients.
Explain.
It's it's an environmental puzzle. It suffers from some real polygonal environment, but the gameplay is largely two-dimensional. So your ability to manipulate objects and place them where they need to be placed is very, very, very fucking tenuous. And it just leads to I have to put a battery in a thing, but the thing is 4 screens away. But it also suffers from some 80s dungeon design pratfalls where 4 screens away is not a straight line. It's have to go through this path and then go back up and around and then through. It's I just want to get to the building. So I bet that game back section is very well trafficked because it's just get through it.
That sounds like all of the reasons why I never played the original Final Fantasy VII. All of the weird map issues, the polygonal nonsense.
Oh, and then there's the damn jumping part of it too.
There's
where you
the
have to-
damn
There's also
jumping
the
part.
jumping part.
Yeah, almost forgot. Yeah, there's the timing on it as a rhythm game person is not good. It is
So
poor.
fun.
And it's also a lot of stuff foreground, background, because you're climbing up rubble that's kind of supposed to be, the devastation from the plate fall. So
Which part of this is environment and which part
Yeah.
of this is part of the drawing that is behind me? Because
Exactly.
I am moving a
I-
shape in front of a drawing. Yeah.
I hate that shit.
Don't ever play PlayStation 1 games.
Except PlayStation 1 Game of the Year 2021, Vagrant Story.
Nope. Well,
All right.
so you keep climbing up, and then you eventually get to the Shinra Building. You're supposed to sneak in, but Barrett does a bad job because he's clumsy, and then you get exposed. You fight your way in through the garage. Then you get to the entrance, and you get to make a choice. Are you going to take the stairs, or are you going to take the elevator? Though, I forget, is the museum right once you walk through the door, or is that after you go up the stairs?
I thought it was
Like-
after.
The car and
It's
everything.
after.
Oh,
Oh,
that's after.
There's a car exhibit in the lobby.
Yeah, that's super cool. So the car exhibit, you did not see the original game, but the car exhibit and all of this sort of stuff, the propaganda stuff at the bottom floor was all there in the original game too.
Oh, nice.
And so having it feel like a real exhibit, like you might see in, I don't know, if you went to Honda HQ or something. It's a cool little touch, just like the corporate propaganda, we make cars, we make energy, we make life sort of thing. It feels like maybe you walked into the Google campus and they're going to spin you some bullshit. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Then you make the choice. Who here picked anything other than stairs? Who made the wrong choice?
I did both at least once.
Okay, what happens when you go in the elevator? Anything
You just
fun?
basically blow through it. It's very similar to what you get if you select it. So one of the reasons why you always want to blow through the stairs if you play the original game is you get a shit ton of experience points. You basically level up an entire level, which in the scope of Final Fantasy VII might sound insignificant, but during that early stage of the game, it is quite worth it. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, getting a level's, let's say, less significant, so the utility of getting that extra experience points is not as great. So, yeah, the correct decision is to go up the stairs and get the funny comedy bit.
And in the original 7, there are items on the stairs that you can pick up as you're climbing that you don't get if you go up the elevator. And if you go up the elevator, there are just enemies. It turns on random battles earlier.
Yeah.
So
As far as the stairs go in the original, do you have to do it manually?
yes.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And does it take 10 minutes?
It takes 3 or 4, I think. If
They
you're
don't
quick.
slow down. They don't comedy pratfall be it's just I'm using a D-pad going left and right. Left and right.
Everyone other than Cloud, they will eventually start huffing and puffing. They have that sort of thing. Like they're running really fast. They're like, this is fine. And then by the later stairs, like Barrett and Tifa are doubled over. But your character does not move any slower or anything.
Your memory of this is better than mine.
So that is different. That is a pretty different situation. So the different thing when you're taking the stairs in this version of the game is that you're getting slowed down. Like the music starts with battle music, and then it becomes slower battle music, and then it becomes much slower battle music, and then your characters are almost dying by the end, it feels like. And yeah, the whole section just kind of gets played way up from where the original game was. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the stair section.
Yeah.
I noticed that there was a tracker of where you were on the floors. Is there a way to win that, or will Tifa and Barrett usually pass you?
I think I passed Barrett, definitely. They yell at you if you blow Barrett by, though. Tifa's
That's
like,
funny.
hey, Cloud, don't leave Barrett behind. And I'm like, I don't fucking care about... I'm going to win this race, Tifa.
You have now turned it into a competition, so we're going to compete.
Yes, I outran Barrett, but then I don't think I was able to outrun Tifa. But yeah, I think it's a funny little segment. Once you then get past the Barrett, climbing up the stairs, then there becomes you get some puzzles trying to get through the different floors. There's a extended Tifa alone section where she platforms because you have to do calisthenics sort of things that she can do. You find some more weapons. You eventually get to the Shinra cafeteria, basically. Before the cafeteria, right? There's all the sections. There's the section where there's propaganda, where they introduce you to all the members of the board.
You meet the mayor.
You meet the mayor who helps
Hart.
you out. Yeah, the mayor helps you out, and he tells you that you need to tell someone that the mayor is the best. You crawl through that grate, and you learn
If
about
you do all of the stuff with Hart, you actually find out that he's the guy who's leaking information to Avalanche to fuck over Shinra.
Yes, he's working with Avalanche, and he hates that Avalanche. He hates that Shinra has made the mayor's office into basically a non-functional position. He doesn't like that he lives in the library in the Shinra building. He would prefer to do actual mayor things.
I would say this is the environment where my earlier point about the visual discordant feel is you see all these people who are like, oh, we're these correctly proportioned, regular looking people wearing suits at work. And here's just fucking Barrett and Tifa.
It's like that Yu-Gi-Oh meme or whatever. It's like, guess which one of these characters is the protagonist?
And it's a bit too much at times to be seeing these normal sized people and then just this incredible Hulk looking character or Tifa's outfit in general, right?
Yeah. It's people in work attire and then these three goobers, which is very weird. And in the original game, this was not so much a problem because everyone was polygons. They were 7 polygons each. So you couldn't really tell the level of detail that these characters were, out of whack. So you run through these sections. It's too much. These sections dragged a little in the original game. Each of the floors, getting the card keys, they reproduced that faithfully, including the mayor being there and helping you out. All that stuff is in the original game. But in this game, there's just the floors are bigger. There's more to do to get through each of the puzzles, which is kind of annoying. But the most egregious part of this is when you get to the lab. So in the original game, when you meet Red 13 and you save Aerith and you meet Genova for the first time, that is about 3 screens. There's a boss fight, and then a screen and a screen, you get some materia, and that's it. In this version, you get Red 13, you save Aerith, and then there's an extended section of running through Hojo's lab where Hojo laughs at you and puts you through combat training missions. And it's the worst.
Another encounter with those phantoms.
Yes, there are phantoms there, and Sephiroth shows up. All that, some of that stuff is in the original game, but it's just so long. Everything in the fucking lab could have been cut from this game and it would have been fine. If they had just made it 2 screens and moved on to the climax instead of having another dungeon, maybe the longest dungeon in the game, in the Shinra building. Like, it just killed pacing so badly. For very little gain, it's just Hojo laughing at you. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need reasons. Hojo's not a
convincing character.
He's not a textured character. I don't need to know
He
to hate
has
him.
a lot of texture. It's
Oh
all
yeah,
on
his face, Gino.
His face is terrifying.
He looks like a character from a Yakuza game at times.
The
his
thing that
cheekbones.
Oh yeah. The thing that really killed me about it was at the end of it, you open up like 4 or 5 gates, and then Hojo just fucks off, and you don't see him after that. And you're like, well, I guess I did all that just so you could open the door, and then that's the end of it. Does he come back?
He's a major character. Like, all of the characters, all of the executives of Shinra are major characters. They'll show up.
Remember Gino and Jeff, the next time in Final Fantasy VII when we next see Hojo?
Yes, I
chilling
very much
out on a
remember it.
beach
I remember.
in a Speedo.
In a Speedo with the ladies, just ladies all over him. Yeah, it's
ladies love scientists.
There's a little tonal dissonance, let's say. A little ludonarrative dissonance, to bring that one back up. In the first game.
I just can't understand. You went to the trouble of making Hojo look the way he looks and sound the way he sounds. When you make a character that hammy, you don't actually need to have an extended scene of them doing bad shit. We know. We see his unkept stubble. We see his glasses. We see his way of talking. Let it do the work. You don't need to give us an extended section of him being like, science. He tried to have a fucking lion have sex with a woman. Like, we know. Wait, he's bad. That was all that...
What?
Oh, in the original game, he says that there's the experiment. I think that it was in this game, too.
Yeah.
He wants to have Red 13 and Aerith mate so that they will make a hardier offspring that won't die so easily. That's his explanation.
Is that a fan fiction section?
No, that's in the text.
Well, no, but that whole subgenre. Like...
Probably.
I don't know about this subgenre. Jeff, please talk into the microphone more about
I'm going to go to fanfiction.net. I'm going to close my...
pairings of Aerith and Red 13.
I have to close the Sonic 9/11 tribute fanfiction that I have up, and I'm going to search.
Is that up there with the Goku saves Anne Frank from Adolf Hitler, and then they become married?
Yes, actually. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Okay, well, you get to the top of the Shinra building fucking eventually after going through all of these terrible
Floor 69. Nice.
Floor 69. You get to the top, and in the original game, President Shinra is already dead. When you get up there, there's just a trail of blood leading you up to the president impaled on Sephiroth's sword. And that was a fucking great introduction.
Yes. Quick pause here, too.
Yes?
This game, and, like, the scene that comes up where you're in prison, the original has got, like, blood in it.
Yes.
And it's, like, a fucking mess. And this game goes, like, real soft on that, which surprised me. Like, I feel like the scene of, like, Sephiroth's, like, bad, spoiler, Sephiroth is coming up, is, like, some goo, like, some green, like, evil ichor or whatever, but it's not like, oh, shit, someone got eviscerated.
I want to say my favorite, like, most horrifying moment in a non-horror video game is the big reveal of Genova in Final Fantasy VII. Like, when you see that headless corpse with eyes sticking out of the chest in the tank, that first reveal of what Genova looks like with her head cut off, it's
gross.
It's a great scene.
Yeah.
The Genova in this game is a very Nomura creation, which is less effective in establishing this sense of horror.
Yeah.
It did look like the one that they had in, I think, Advent Children.
Yeah. Advent Children, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, it's that lady in the tube.
The tube lady.
It wasn't like, oh my god, Genova. It was just like, hey, I recognize that set piece. It didn't even feel horrific, and then it's gone in the next scene.
In the original game, it was pretty horrific. Like, it was the only high-res thing for most
basically,
of the, like, character model. And
just
it's
this decapitated
body,
headless form. It's like it's a real good scene. It's a real good, like, holy shit moment.
Maybe not great that, like, the highest res thing is a picture of a mutilated woman, basically, but, you know. Hey, it was the 90s.
Look, there are eyes where the nipples should be. It's weird and creepy. So yeah, President Shinra's alive instead of dead, and then he like threatens you at gunpoint, and then Sephiroth shows up and kills him, and then runs Barrett through as well. And I'm like, oh damn, they're really changing the plot. Barrett's gonna die here? Oh damn. And then a plot ghost emerges from Barrett, and Barrett's like, oh, I guess I'm not dead.
Gino, I want to hear how you felt when you saw this, because you seemed the most skeptical.
This moment?
Yeah.
Oh, I hated it. I hated it a lot, because for a second there, I was like, oh, they're really going to change the plot. Barrett's dead. I don't know why Sephiroth's here. Like, Sephiroth, there are explanations for why Sephiroth is here in the earlier game, and I think we do find out, like, one of the Sephiroth clone people, Sephiroth fades away, and then a dude in a robe is there, right? So, like,
He's
that...
got a number on his shoulder. It's like 49, and then he's holding another one, which is 2, who was the president of Shinra, and now they're both clones, I guess.
Yeah, there's Sephiroth clone stuff happening, but I just thought, why kill Barrett to unkill him? Like, one, I thought that the ghosts, what their purpose was obvious as hell, like, the whole time. 2, I don't get why you have that moment where you kill Barrett just to unkill him, just to be like, ha ha ha, the plot doesn't matter, nothing that happens matters, there's no stakes to any of this, because we'll just undo it with plot ghosts. I feel like don't kill Barrett and then unkill him less than 5 minutes later, if you want it to have impact.
Yeah, I was surprised how quick they did it, I guess. Like, it was everything up to this point, like I said, like the mixing in of weird dirge shit and bringing back Wedge, I was like, I wonder... And then as soon as this happened, I was like, okay, we're going to start making some very controversial decisions going forward, aren't we? And boy, and how.
Boy, do we. Yeah, so... I think that this is probably, it just undermines the storytelling, right? Like, you're building up cash that you can cash in on story changes that will be impactful.
Storytelling capital, yes.
Exactly. You're building storytelling capital, and you can spend it however you want. They decided to spend some of their storytelling capital and their kind of suspension of disbelief. They decided to spend it on a fake out that lasted less than 5 minutes, that really just completely undermined the stakes of the story they were trying to tell. And I was like, oh, this seems like a Tetsuya Nomura thing to do.
Yeah. Honestly,
that's a real big one.
I think this was the point where I can see why people are upset. I also, like, I think it's kind of great in a way. Like, this was the point where I was like, because I had a working theory, and I think I said this aloud to my spouse at a certain point, when the ghosts were literally dragging away Hojo from that room. I was like, they're just fans. These are just weebs. They don't want the story to change. And this is the point where it's like, it's literally what it is. This is literally just, you are all now part of this fiction. Congratulations, you have made it into the game.
I think we made this comparison of End of Ava a few times.
Yes.
It's very much the like, all right, you want to see a remake, we're gonna remake it, but you're not gonna like it, and we know you're not gonna like it, so here's
I almost wish it had a Hideaki Anno quality of like, double middle fingers, bitch, eat my ass.
See, that's why I was like, oh, we're killing Barrett, awesome. Now the story can go someplace totally weird. I'm sure other people who were looking for the game to follow the same beats would have been way more pissed off if he stayed dead. I would have preferred he stay dead, and then you tell a different story. Rather than we kill him and then unkill him and then go, what are these ghosties doing?
That is the one thing where I will side with you, Gino, is like, if you were going to make a Final Fantasy VII game that recanonizes the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, or you created your own, why spend this much song and dance billing this game as a faithful remake of Final Fantasy VII? I mean, because I remember the forums of our website that we moderate, Gino, people were pissed when they got to this part of the game where it's like, this is some, wait, what? And it's like...
Yeah, and I just don't get it. Like, maybe they'll pay it off in the next game, but we're talking about literally the dude what architected Kingdom Hearts, Dirge of Cerberus,
Final Fantasy
Crisis
13.
Core, 13. Like, most of the things that Tetsuya Nomura has been in charge of that have done this sort of spin-off into grander stuff have fallen directly on their face, have become narratively just incredibly obtuse. You can't understand anything that's going on.
But Gino, they've made so much money.
Yeah.
That's a
They've
great
made
point.
millions of dollars.
They've learned no lessons.
Yes.
So you fight Genova. It's the coolest fight in the entire damn game.
The Genova
music
Dreamweaver?
plays.
Yeah.
You
that
mean
was
that final boss battle? You mean that
It should have
definitely
been.
the end of the game
what
final
should have
boss
been
battle?
the end of the boss battle.
It's so good. The Genova music kicks in, and the fight is long but good. Like,
a great fight.
It asks you to use so many mechanics. You have to juggle between your team members. You have to keep track of Genova's tentacles, and
it feels difficult without being punishing. That was
Yes.
the other big thing about it.
I do kind of feel a little sad about the fact that they made this fight into a kind of a dreams hallucination sequence, because in the original game it was like bits of Genova's body would be responsible for the larger creature, and so when you kill the creature there'd be like an arm
I just
wriggling
like
on the
how
ground.
Genova's not just the instance; it starts to like manipulate parts of the environment.
Yeah.
That's definitely the cool stuff.
Yes, it's dynamic, it's fun, it requires you to like use like all of the parts you've taken up with all of your character. Oh, this fight fucking rules.
And
It does.
then
And then you fight
and
Rufus
then
one-on-one.
Sephiroth appears out of nowhere to carry Genova's body away.
Yep.
And then it's like, wait, how many goddamn Sephiroths are? I guess that's something that was a part of Final Fantasy VII, OG Final Fantasy VII,
Yes,
is this idea of like, what is Sephiroth? How is he able to just appear out of nowhere?
Yep.
Right.
How does Sephiroth?
So they step onto the roof. There's the avalanche helicopter, which sure, okay, fine. There's a helicopter.
And then he
And
gets
then it's shot down by Reno and Rud. And this introduced everybody's favorite shit boy, trash boy, Rufus Shinra.
Yes. And he's way cooler in this game than he
He-
was in the original.
That fight was so sick.
Yes.
I was like, okay, that was the final boss we just had, but this is like a final boss, and I'm down for it. It's pretty sick. He's in his white coat. He's shooting coins at you.
Got
I
a
don't know.
shotgun.
I don't know why any of that was happening.
He's
Is
got
that
his dog.
Is that a thing he does?
So
Like-
in the original game, it's a fight. It's still a one-on-one fight, or a one-on-two, I guess. Cloud versus Rufus and his dog, and the other characters are taking the elevator down to escape. Rufus, you fight him one-on-one. He has a gun. Like, he does normal JRPG stuff. He does not, like, he's got some gun, like, special moves, but they're, cool animations. In this game, his gun, like, when he'll, like, throw coins in the air, and if he shoots them, they become, like, his gun blasts become laser beams. Or, like, he'll shoot them, and then he'll move himself with the force of his gunshots. If you swing at him at the wrong time, he'll, like, gun kata around you and shoot you in the head. It's so cool.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what it should have been the whole time.
Sure.
Like-
And the one-on-one fight between Rufus and Cloud is the right mix of cinematic plus gameplay, where you feel
And
like
difficult.
you just and it's difficult enough because Shinra can kill you. Shinra can,
Yeah, Rufus.
or
Rufus totally
Rufus
can.
kill you.
And he, like, has good, like, mechanics to him. You can't just swing away at him and kill him. He's a counterattack character. He's one where you have to kind of play defensive and bait out his attacks. So, like, it's cool to see, especially after, like, this Genova fight, which was all about controlling space and managing multiple enemies and swinging away, just constantly be attacking. And then the Rufus one is really about pulling back and being patient. So
And-
I really like these two fights back to back. And then we
The
have
game
the fight.
keeps going. The game keeps going.
And that was the first time I was like, okay, I thought that was the end of the game. I guess the game's not over. And we keep going. And
Well,
what
we
do
still have
you
to do the Shinra escape, where you get into
Yes.
this is kind of an iconic scene in Final Fantasy VII. You get on the
motorcycle.
motorcycle, you get on the truck, you got to get the hell out of Midgard. The heat's too much.
And you have to fight that. You have to fight that road warrior boss, that like weird machine.
Yeah.
Like you fight that in the original game too.
I don't think when I originally did the motorcycle sequences, I was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this again in 20 hours, and it will be harder. But
it's also like that in 7.
I mean,
the motorcycle sequence.
But as your number one Sega Mega Drive boy and your number one Road Rash boy, let me tell you, as a young man playing this for the first time, in discovering that they put motherfucking Road Rash into my game was a very exciting time. And for what it is, I think it's like an okay minigame thing here. It's not the best combat in this game, mostly because the rest of the combat's like very good, but it's fun. It's all right. It's and then that it culminates in this like final big car boss fight thing is really cool. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time though, because like I knew this was going to be like, you're out of runway as soon as you do this. Like literally you run out of runway, you get to the end of a road and fight a thing, and that is where Midgar ends. Yes, so I was like, everything from this point is going to be weird. And so hard to really focus on anything else, because I'm just like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Are they going to fuck it up? Oh, I want to see what they do. I want to see what they do.
And you also fight, there's a boss in an elevator, and then you fight it in the lobby with the rest of your cast. So that also existed in the original game.
I hated that fight.
I hated that fight. That fight was too slow because I didn't have my damage-dealing characters quite as much. So once you get to the end of the runway, so in the original game, once you get to the end of the highway, you take a little, what is it, like a winch? Like a crane hook? You climb down, and that gets you outside of Midgar. In this game, there's a portal at the end of the road that Aerith opens.
Sephiroth shows up.
Yep.
And he's
we
like,
got another
follow
Sephiroth
me.
thing.
Follow me into this dark portal. And then you all have your little moment where you're like, we're going to go into the future.
Well, remember, Red 13 starts to explain things like, oh, by the way, I actually know exactly what's going on. These are mysterious ghosts. They've been helping us out. Just abide by them. Sephiroth is good, dog. Let's go.
Like, he started to do that way back in the Shinra building. Yeah. He was like, these are whispers. They're arbiters of fate. And then Sephiroth is back here, and then the Shinra building is all consumed with the whispers, and he's like, come on and fight me, or whatever. And then everyone's got to have their little, like, are we actually going to do this? And then Aerith makes a shiny portal instead of the dark portal that Sephiroth made. And
it's like, from here on out, we put fate into our own hands. So everything up until this moment was governed by the whispers that kept everything on rails so that it would behave like the original Final Fantasy VII.
And then everyone literally looks at the camera for like about 2 minutes and like sort of scowls, and like you see their eye twitch a little bit and a little bit of like a little gag, like a little throw up.
It's
and
weird
then they go
because
back to
they point directly at you and say your actual name.
Yeah, it's fucked
really
up.
Fucked me up.
Because it's like, why do they have this information? It's because I signed up for Play Online right before this, and they like had that handy. It was fucking weird. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, this game, they're like, from this point on, it's going to be off the rails, everyone. Unlike those other characters that we kept alive that should have died, and these moments that we had that we then did takesies backsies on. Now it's really going to go off the rails, dog. So you go into a floating space, just like, it does Final Fantasy stuff, where at the end they decide, what is reality even? Everything's just floating in the air. We're fighting ethereal monsters that have not shown up till this point forward. They are ghosts, they're whispers, but like better whispers. And you have to fight 3 little ones and then 1 really big one. And when you kill all of them, then you have to fight Sephiroth.
You gotta kill them like 4 different times, too.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
damage the big one.
Also, before this even starts, there's this amazing JRPG-specific PS4 feature that pops up on your PlayStation, where like through the rest of this game, you could do like share screenshots or whatever, like very quickly with like a button press, and a prompt comes up that's just like, hey, you cannot screen share the rest of this game going forward.
Yeah,
like this is
actually
all
stops you.
Yeah, like you don't reveal the secret ending to your friends, you fucker. Like it's ridiculous.
Let them appreciate the narrative we're writing.
Yeah.
The grand story.
And then it's like, yeah, fight this fucking red shape for a while.
Yeah, I just... The
Yeah,
Whisperers look exactly the same, and so these bosses, I get that they all have different, like, weaknesses and strengths, but it's really the same looking ghost monster.
But one of them is magic, one of them is melee, and one of them is Barret.
One of them has fists, one of them has a sword, and one of them has guns?
Magic guns?
Something
It doesn't matter.
That's like my party. That's crazy.
That's like the three guys from Advent Children.
All right,
Yeah.
we're missing the best part about this, which is after the fight is done, you enter this realm, this fucking realm, where it's just the giant Whisperers and then Sephiroth. But I think this is the real Sephiroth. And they say that, or talk about how it's the real Sephiroth. And
then you fight him.
You fight him.
In the beginning of the first part of this remake, you fight Sephiroth because it had, the lack of discipline to just not have you fight Sephiroth at the end of this game. Like, one of the whole points, one of the cool things about Final Fantasy VII was that there's teasers of Sephiroth. You see him fight things. You see what he does to things. Like you are constantly walking through the aftermath of people who have run into Sephiroth and then gotten fucking murdered. And you don't fight him until the end of the goddamn game. You are dealing with him for the entire thing, and then you fight him the last 2 boss fights. That's it. Or 3 boss fights. Or Sephiroth versions. And in this game, they just don't have the fucking discipline. They make you fight him at the end of Remake version 1 in a dream space. Like, they have to come up with a location where you could fight him.
They have him show up from, like, the first couple of minutes of this game. And I felt like, I would have been sort of disappointed not to have seen him at the end. But also, did we really have to fight him?
No, it could have been
We've already seen him already before, so the impact of fighting Sephiroth has been muted. Like, sure, they've been clones and stuff, but we've seen Sephiroth and had these, like, physical altercations where, like, if you want this to be a climactic battle, like Gino says, you don't fucking fight Sephiroth 4 or 5 goddamn times prior to this scene.
Yeah,
and
it's just... Go ahead, Em.
For what it's worth, his fight is literally bullshit compared to any of the other fights that we've done in the past couple of hours of gameplay, because you just, like, you swing your sword at him a bunch, and there's no thought process to it.
And you need to do it fast, because he, like, spams magic and shit all over the screen, and the longer the fight goes, the more damage he's going to do to you. So you actually need to just constantly spam limit breaks and stuff, and summons, like, do everything all the time. Never stop doing things in this fight.
It didn't even, like, register that it was, like, difficult. It was just, I need to press a lot of buttons.
Yeah, I felt much more skillful fighting Rufus than I did fighting Sephiroth. And
yes.
It's just such a fucking bummer because, like, it took in the original game, you see President Shinra get run through. You run across, like, do you want me to say some things that happened in the original game that might come up in Remake Part 2 in 2030?
Does Aerith die? Is that one of them?
Aerith dies.
Uh-huh.
There's a gigantic snake that gets impaled on a fucking tree. The snake is like 30 feet tall, and he puts its head through a tree.
Yeah, I guess you're right, Gino. I hadn't even thought about it. You've basically emasculated Sephiroth as a threat. Like, the game spends so much of its original time in the original building Sephiroth as a threat. So you see, in fact, there's a couple of boss battles where Sephiroth just kills you. Like they're force lost battles even. And now there's one on the ship.
I think so. There's a fight. There's a flashback sequence where Cloud is fighting with Sephiroth. Cloud attacks this dragon and does like 2 damage, and then Sephiroth hits it once and it deals like 99999 and it dies immediately. Like they build up his mythos the entire time. There's so many sequences where he shows up and oh no, shit's gonna get real fast. And this game just undermines it immediately. You fight him, you win. In the very first remake, you haven't even left Midgar yet. This is the beginning of the original game, and we're already saying, Cloud's probably stronger than Sephiroth.
Okay, let's put it in the meta, the mythos of Sephiroth in the meta context. I don't know. It seems like, Kingdom Hearts, you fought him, you fight him in...
the hardest boss in Kingdom Hearts 1.
True. You can fight him in 2 too. You can have him in Smash now. Like all that sort of seems like he's just sort of been taken down a few notches in the public zeitgeist, I guess. He's just the Final Fantasy guy.
Even in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, they treated him like a final boss. Like, he is the hardest boss in 1, and then in 2, he is the final boss of the Hollow Bastion section. He's really fucking hard to beat. So, like, those uses of him treated him like a final boss sort of thing. And this is the final boss fight of 7 Remake, sure. But, like, presumably you're gonna keep going, right? Like, there's gonna be Remake Part 2, Remake Part 3. You're gonna tell the whole story. And so I feel like you need to actually just assume that your game will have those parts. And this game, it got sweaty at the end. They're like, shit, if we don't put Sephiroth in it, maybe the game won't sell. Or shit, if we don't put Sephiroth in there, people are going to be mad. But you know what I'm mad about is the part after you beat Sephiroth.
Oh man, we need to talk about the part after this.
He talks some bullshit like, Cloud, you and I are not so different, you and I. And, some nonsense, some cryptic bullshit. And then
not only the cryptic bullshit, but you see the illusions, you see the dream sequence, the distressing images of Aerith dying and a meteor coming crashing towards Midgard.
Yes, you see the like climactic moments from 7 flash forward.
They even played the very last visual of Final Fantasy VII of an old Red 13 looking at the washed out, destroyed ruins of Midgar.
I loved it so much. Like, it's like a bullshit fountain at this point, and like the fight is frankly kind of whatever. And I'm not gonna say I disagree with some of the general concerns that have been expressed here, but when I was going through this and seeing all the shit they were throwing at the fan and just thinking about how fucking mad it was going to make people, I was just like, yes, just like turning into a Super Saiyan in my shitty little apartment I played this in. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. They made people so mad. You're so mad.
Here's the
thing.
Did you talk about what happens when Aerith touches Marlene?
What happens?
In the Sector 7 when they're evacuating? So Aerith is like trying to get Marlene, trying to get her out of 7th Heaven. And when she puts her hand on Marlene, Marlene's eyes like go wide, and then all of a sudden there's this moment where she like has this understanding, like something. Does she cry or something? Like there's a moment where she's just like, she seems to understand something fundamentally about Aerith and about where this world is going, just from touching Aerith, and like having those little moments where there were like subtle nods.
She was worried that someone was going to die.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it was her mother or someone, and she was like, I can't just outright tell you this, but I'm going to basically tell you, but I'm going to tell you in a way that makes people angry. Oh, God.
But, put those little touches, those little, Aerith knows more than the other characters. She can see the timelines a little bit. Like, the don't fall in love with me, Cloud. Like, all of that stuff I thought was a little bit, you can have the nonsense or your changes to the story with just those subtle little nudges. Like, you laid the groundwork. Wedge lived. All that sort of stuff. Like, you didn't have to have this fight in the sky against ghosts and then Sephiroth saying cryptic nonsense, but Nomura can never help himself. So here we are.
Everything after a certain point was just purely the Final Fantasy aesthetic, and it didn't have any bearing on anything in the actual story.
Yeah.
And it probably won't have anything to do with anything going forward. It's just like, you remember Advent Children? Here's some Advent Children stuff. Here's some we got to talk about the Crisis Core stuff.
Yes.
Right. So let's keep going.
It appears
you
after
defeat
beat
Sephiroth in the Whispers, right? And then Sephiroth basically says, all right, peace. You stopped it for now, but guess what? The world's going to end. You might as well side with me because I'm a man of action. Peace. Bye. I'm going to disappear now. Also, you won by like 7 seconds left. Blah, 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 blah.
What was that about? He teleports you to the edge of the universe and is like, here's the universe. It's really
like 4
cool.
or 5 seconds from Wylan.
You're basically in this new continuity. Basically that's what it is. Is like you are in a new continuity. Destiny has been freed.
Now they can do anything. They've written a narrative device to allow them to tell a new story with the FF7 characters, because now we're in the FF7 multiverse, and you can now tell another storyline because this is Into the Spider-Verse, but Final Fantasy. It's just a bunch of parallel Final Fantasy VIIs. And ZP, what do they do with this newfound freedom?
This newfound freedom, to establish that Destiny has truly been changed, we discover that Zack Fair survived his final stand. One of the most heart-wrenching and powerful things that by far Nomura has done in at least, what would you say, Gino, 20 years, the ending of Crisis Core.
I would say the ending of Crisis Core is the best thing he has ever done as a game director.
He did 10. He did a significant portion
Was
of
he
10.
The director of 10?
I'm pretty sure he did a significant. We don't need to do that. But you would at least agree.
Yes.
One of the objectively best things that he has ever written.
Yes.
The ending of Crisis Core.
Yes.
And he can't even stop himself from undoing the best thing that he has ever written by himself without any help from someone else.
Well, I mean, without another producer.
Sure.
I don't know that he's the writer of all this. He's not the writer necessarily, but as a director.
That the original owner of the Buster Sword, he's coming back.
Yes.
He's coming back. We also find out that Marlene is okay, that Rufus has taken over the company. We need to find Sephiroth. Hojo's got doing stuff with Genova's body. It's actually, to be perfectly honest, a pretty rushed epilogue. When you consider how much fucking time we spent in all of those goddamn dungeons, the fact that the actual epilogue of this game is what? A 5-minute cutscene where everyone just says like their piece for 30 seconds and we move on?
Well, yeah, they say we're freed from Destiny, and then Biggs wakes up, and Jesse's still dead. They kept the most interesting of all those characters dead, and then they brought back the 2 shitty ones. And Wedge got knocked out of a window and died off screen, right?
Yeah, Wedge is like fighting against the Whispers, trying to get forward, and then he like gets thrown back, and then it cuts to black, and you hear glass shattering. So who knows?
Maybe Wedge is alive, maybe he's dead. Who cares, though?
We'll see if the contract with his voice actor gets renewed or not, and that'll determine if he's alive in the next game.
Yeah, they saved Biggs, they changed some of the continuity. Zack may or may not be alive. I don't know. What do we think for the next... Let's start with M. Do you have faith that this will go anywhere satisfying?
Satisfying is a strong term.
If you like Kingdom Hearts, I bet it's going to be fun.
Yeah. The thing is, after a certain point, it's just Final Fantasy VII aesthetic. Like that whole final 4 or 5 battles. And I feel like you'll get a lot of that. If you're a fan of the original series, as you are, it's probably not going to feel like Final Fantasy VII. If you have any attachment to these characters and you care about how their story ends up, it's probably not going to feel great. I don't imagine that there is any satisfying way that they can do it for most.
I don't know. Next question. So, Jeff, do you think this is going anywhere satisfying? Or do you just subsist solely on the anger of the fans who are not happy?
I mean,
Jeff is just a troll looking
troll,
for
I don't know if I'm a
vitriol.
troll. I'm excited that they have, I guess this isn't entirely true because they're going to, they can't, I guess, have it both ways. Because it's either you completely free yourself from the shackles of all of the existing bullshit and just write an actually new thing, or you continue to incorporate pieces of that thing to write some new text, but while also looking back and being like deep ground or like whatever the fuck. So I guess they're trying. I can see a universe where they're probably going to split the difference between those, which I guess bothers me a little bit. But I have a sinking feeling, and by sinking I mean I want to get up and dance, that the next thing that happens is not going to be a big shitty fucking useless overworld map and going to Costa del Sol.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be this game. Whatever is going to be made next is going to be some new thing. And that is exciting because I think playing this game, like the actual part where you play the fucking game, is the best thing they've made in 15, 20 years. It's a fun thing to play. It has some pratfalls it runs into along the way. We're talking about like menus being fiddly and like maybe too much shit being dropped. But I at no point was I like, I really dislike playing this game, which I feel like I could say about almost all of their output in one way or another since 10. Like 11, didn't enjoy playing it. We've all been there. 12, Jesus Christ, too Byzantine. 13, we're not even going to litigate it again. 13, 2, that's a little better than 13. Hooray. A lot of mobile shit. Who cares? Like this is the path forward. Get rid of this fucking menu business and do this. This is good. I realize this came from Kingdom Hearts. Let's just ignore that, and we're going to put a lampshade right there.
I want to also kind of ducktail. I'll just chime in. I'm more or less with Jeff. Like, the least interesting thing they could have done is just continue to do a shot-for-shot remake of Final Fantasy VII with HD textures and a slightly new combat system. And I have no idea where they're going to go. I don't think that we will see where they're going to go because, like, there's something to be said about how they have laid out their 3 or 4 year plan, and it's a bunch of recursor remakes and side businesses.
Yes,
tie-in games.
They've laid out their plan, and Final Fantasy Remake Part 2 is not in it.
Yeah, and I think that should they make Episode 2, we have no idea what it's going to be, and that in and of itself is far more interesting than, hey, it's going to be the same overworld. Oh, hey, it's going to be all of those interstitial levels. Because let's be honest, like, after Midgar, Final Fantasy VII's mid-game is boring as fuck. Other than maybe Coral, and then eventually you get to the interesting stuff with, like, the crater. But there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of boring-ass, like, one-off set pieces that really have very little to contribute in terms of forwarding the story. And so if they want to just tear all that shit out and just do something completely different, because I'm down.
Yeah.
And if it's bad, it will probably be schlocky and dumb and at least fun to make fun of.
And probably play well.
Yeah.
More
it will play well. The mechanics of this game were pretty good.
I think if the gameplay is the same as it was in this, it will be perfectly passable as gameplay goes, and then the only downsides are going to be comparing it to the original story. Because, I mean, what would be satisfying as far as where we are at now compared to what the original story was? Is there any, like, is it going to come back together at a point, and then you'll be like, okay, they solved it. This is Final Fantasy VII again. Or is it just going to be a new thing from here on out? Like, I don't know. As someone who hasn't played the original, I could not say. That's up to you guys.
Yeah, I don't mind that they freed themselves to tell a new story. I actually prefer that. I didn't want to just play through a faithful recreation of 7. Although it was clear during the part where they were faithfully recreating 7 and expanding upon it, that's the best part of this game. The parts that are the worst part of this game are where they are creating new narrative. So if all they did was take the skeleton of that game and flesh it out to a greater extent, I think it would have been fine. Honestly, like, I don't need the main plot to be that different, as long as you're making these characters much more realized and giving more depth to the locations. Like, I would love to see the coral section that's coming up, and the gold saucer, like, some of those places recreated, give more bones to that stuff, and it would have been fine. Like, I don't think you needed an entirely new narrative. Now that you've decided that you want a new narrative, the question is, what are you going to do with it? And I don't know. I've seen every game that Tetsuya Nomura's directed, and it always goes into wide-spinning anime bullshit. And this game did it in microcosm. And so I'm just concerned that we're just going to end up with a Kingdom Hearts situation where people are talking about the nature of friendship or something, or, belief in oneself for, like, a fucking hour, and then you're going to fight the visual representation of friendship or something. And, it's all in play. Like, Final Fantasy XIII started out with you fighting a god, and then 13-2 threw out the entire continuum and became a time travel story. Like, these games are incoherent messes, generally speaking, that Nomura has directed, and that's what concerns me. Because we had the skeleton of something that wasn't an incoherent mess, and we introduced the very real... Well, actually, 7 has a lot of incoherence to it.
7 is an incoherent mess, so... Tetsuya Nomura, if Tetsuya Nomura goes full Nomura, it's not that big of a leap from the original Final Fantasy VII.
You could have tried to make it coherent, though. You could have
Final Fantasy VII's not coherent in the first place.
Yeah, to wit, explain Sephiroth and Genoa to me. Explain it like I'm a child.
Okay, so Genova was the calamity from the sky. She was an alien from space that came down and crashed in a meteorite.
What is the life stream?
The life stream is it's all ghosts, all dead people turn into energy and they go into the planet. And it's all living and dead things. But it's also a physical thing you can soak up.
Why does Cloud go into a coma when he touches the life stream for 10 seconds?
Because it's full of Mako energy and a human body can't handle it. It's just too much raw power.
Then some people turn into mutants?
So the people who turn into mutants because they were given Genova cells. She's an alien, and when you put her cells in you...
Okay, let's rank this
motherfucker. An ancient is they were another race of people like humans, but they've got powers.
As I turn into a corn cob.
Yeah, I just don't... I really wish that... I hope that they go somewhere good with this rope that they've made. I've seen so many times where they've hewn themselves a rope and then hung themselves with it, and made the story worse than if they had just not gone that far in the first place. And that concerns me. The gameplay will be good because the gameplay of this game is good, and if you just copy-pasted it, it would still be good.
Is, like, Nomura has, at least in my books, like, if Nomura goes full Nomura, it's not that big of a delta from what Final Fantasy VII already was. So I guess I'm not that at arms. I think I'm more with Jeff. It's like, give me the schlop. Give me a different type of schlop. And then also, yes, feed me the tears of these goddamn fans that are all up in arms. Anyways, let's rank this.
Let's rank it. So, currently, our ranking of fantasies is as follows. The best Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy IX, followed by 10, followed by 7, followed by 8, followed by 5, followed by 12, followed by the trading card game, followed by 1, then Final Fantasy V Legend of the Crystals, then Dissidia Opera Omnia, then 10-2, 13-2, Advent Children, The Spirits Within, Mobius Final Fantasy, Lost Order Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X-2 Last Mission, Final Fantasy II, Final Fantasy XI, and last and always least, Final Fantasy XIII. So, where do we think that Final Fantasy VII Remake belongs? I think we should look at the top of this list and start there. Is Final Fantasy VII Remake better than Final Fantasy IX?
Yes.
No. No.
Yes.
No.
I mean,
seems-
yes.
It seems you're outvoted, you know? It's better than Final Fantasy IX.
Nope.
No. Okay. What's the next
Is
game?
it 10. You wouldn't say it's better than 10. None of you would say it's better than 10.
No.
Probably not. No. I'm playing 10 right now. There's some things about it that haven't aged as better as I remember, but yeah.
Those
yeah,
boss
it's-
battles. The boss battles in 7 Remake are a lot better than 10.
Yes. Fair.
Is it better than original 7? I think so.
Ooh.
I like this better than 7.
That's a
I don't. Here's the thing, though. But I don't think it's better than 8.
That's fair. I do like 8 more than this. 7 kind of jumped 8 because it was more important than 8. I don't like playing this as much as I like playing 5. I definitely like it more than 12. 12 is its floor, I think.
Yeah, easy.
So it's above 12 but below 5? I don't know. I feel like it's got a more interesting, compelling story and characters that are better defined than 5's characters.
That is certainly true. It is definitely more story-driven than 5, but I think I enjoyed fiddling around with the job system in 5 more than the active time battle in 7 Remake. Does 5 ever drag as much as 7 Remake
There are
does in
some
those
spots,
dungeons?
especially the last couple of levels of 5, that go on a little bit longer than they should.
Yeah. Yeah, when you collect all the crystal fragments and stuff, yeah, it can drag a little. 12 is definitely its floor. It's definitely better than 12.
Jeff, what do you think?
It's
Where are you
killing
gauging
me
it?
because I'm just like like 10. It is a like the thing about 10 is like, is it the best at like literally any of the things that it does? And I think that answer is no. But it's
I
like
think it's one of the best turn-based systems they ever did. But other than
I
that,
think it's like a solid B+ to A- in every single category across the board. Whereas most of these games are like, it's very good except for this part that's like, I say that as I'm like actively playing 10 right now. And like,
tell me about the Mihen High Road.
it's
Jeff.
not that I'm literally doing that right now and I don't mind it. Mayhen's a great
Tell me about the
character.
Thunder Plains.
Just don't.
There's a
There's
good
different
game. I
planes
like
that
10.
think
It's the
are
second
worse than
best
the
one.
Thunder
You're the
Planes.
lunatic that likes Chocobo hot or cold. Your brain doesn't work, okay? Like, God. You're a
You like
mad.
the gem system in Final Fantasy IX more than the sphere grid in Final Fantasy X. Your brain's broken, Gino.
That's crystal meth nonsense. Anyway, this game, I feel like it belongs somewhere in the 7-8 crease. I just can't place it, and that's like really high praise. I know, but I
feel
really
like-
fucking like this game. I really
I feel
do.
like the question is, should the original Final Fantasy VII be refactored to be underneath Final Fantasy VIII?
Are we? I don't know if I like the idea of allowing refactoring.
We can't do that to this list because we will just kill each other.
Yes. This list is the way it is. We can only add to it. We cannot refactor because
But-
refactoring
But Final
would
Fantasy
kill
VII
everything.
Remake is better than Final Fantasy VII, but it's not better than Final Fantasy VIII.
Here's what I would say.
I would allow that swap and only that swap.
No. Here's what I want to say in defense of putting it below 8.
I'm here to cause problems. on purpose.
Here's what I would say as to why I think it should go below 8. Think about how much of this game is contingent on episode 2 or like a bunch of side games that are coming out in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Think about
How perfect 8 is.
7
How
is a
contained.
self-contained story, a long-winded, convoluted, and oftentimes slog, but
But
a product of its time that literally inspired and encouraged people to get into the genres of RPGs, JRPGs, all forms of RPGs on the PS2, thus growing the hobby of gaming and just, video game enthusiasm. I think I was the one that advocated to include historical significance to our ranking of 7.
Yes, you are the reason 7 is above 8.
And I stand by that just because think of how many people who will continue to put Final Fantasy VII as the greatest game ever made.
That's true, though I've played 8 like a dozen times, and I played 7 once and thought that was enough.
You are broken. You're a
That's true.
broken man. You are a
That's
broken man. You found out about that water glitch in 8, and you're like, hook it up!
And that changed my life. Really, and that's a sad thing to say.
You just spent so much time, Gino, about how you completely hated at least the last third of this game.
Oh yeah, I think that it should go below 8. Now you've convinced me. I would put it. I said the floor is 12. I'm fine with it being under 5, above 12. I could be swayed that it's under 8 and above 5. I don't think that it's above 8. I would be fine with swapping 8 and 7 and putting it above 7.
The schlock of 8 is respectable. It is beautiful.
It's a big soap opera.
It's a big soap
great.
opera.
Yeah, for me, 8's the one I kind of imprinted on. Like it's my 9, I guess. And I fully see that it's got like a lot of holes and shit in it. Yeah, I think this goes below 8.
Okay.
Which is still, like, to be clear, is still like in.
Let's remind our audiences,
these are all good games.
Where we draw the line of you start here and above, and you're good.
It's probably like good games are probably FFTCG and above. Like 1 is kind of but it's historical. Legend of the Crystals is like, do you want to watch the Final Fantasy version of Rocky Horror Picture Show? Opera Omnia is fun but kind of aggressive. There are people who shouldn't play Opera Omnia.
So we could at least say it's better than Opera Omnia. It's better than Legend of the Crystal. So keep going.
10-2 is real spotty. 13-2 is bad.
It's better than that.
Yeah, like once we get to I would say that the cutoff of games that I would recommend a person play is 10-2, and then the cutoff of games that I think are actively good is the TCG.
It's better than the TCG.
I think Dissidia is good, but it's like, it's a Skinner box. So
okay, so keep going.
How good could it really be?
So I'm trying to let's work from that start point moving up.
So from the TCG up, I think the great games are 12 has an argument. TCG I think is 12. A great trading card game. 12 I think it's better than 12, and 12 is a great game, but its gameplay is just a real slog.
12 is a pretty good game.
It has probably one of the best overall written stories of the PS2 era.
Yes. 5, amazing gameplay, changed this entire series with its gameplay. Story is also pretty good, but a little bit hammy.
The story is charming.
Yes. 8, controversial gameplay, very hammy soap opera story, but endearing as all hell.
Remember when Square took experiments and were willing to live with the consequences?
Yes. 7 launched this entire thing into the stratosphere. 10 just rock solid at everything, like Jeff said, like doesn't flinch. And 9 is just like this really deep, expansive world that has a ton of stuff going on in it. A nice return to form of the old class system from the earlier games, and just one of the most enduring worlds that they've ever made. So I mean, I'm fine with it going above 7 Remake, going above 5, below 8.
Okay.
Does anyone disagree with that?
I do not disagree.
It's good.
Yeah.
I'm writing it in pen.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, FF7 Remake is now the 5th best Final Fantasy game ever made. The list is as follows: 9, 10, 7, 8, 7 Remake, 5, 12, TCG, 1, 5, Final Fantasy V Legend of the Crystals, Dissidia Opera Omnia, 10-2, 13-2, 7 Advent Children, the movie The Spirits Within, Mobius Final Fantasy, Lost Order Final Fantasy VII, 10-2 Last Mission, 2, 11, and last and always least 13, which means now it is time, I think, ZP, for you once again to pick what game we play next.
Is it
Final
ZP?
Fantasy?
Yes,
Is it CP or is it
it's
Jeff?
me. It's me.
Okay.
It's me. Jeff, you can go and give us your torture. I will promise that what I pick is going to be a one-off. Because, to be perfectly honest, Off the Deep End has taken a lot out of me for the Xenosaga and also this Final Fantasy VII thing. This went longer than we wanted. So I felt like, let's do everyone involved a service. Let's do something that only requires a single episode. Something that we could belt out within a decent time. Even though what I will pick is not a game, it is instead a lifestyle choice. We will be doing, or partaking in, Final Fantasy XIV, Dad of Light, the Netflix original series, an 8-episode story arc in which we will follow Akio Inaba as he tries to rekindle his bond with his retired, distant, aging father, who is trying to come through an existential crisis. Join us as we watch people try to form relationships through the scope of the epic online role-playing game Final Fantasy XIV. Ah, yes, Final Fantasy XIV, Dad of Light.
Is this a documentary?
This is
This
a
is-
television show made by the Tokyo Broadcasting System in conjunction with Netflix in 2017.
The Dad of Light series was a actual thing that a person did, and it was then a blog that they posted for about, I think, a year or two, and then it got made into a
Television
TV
show where
Yeah.
each episode is 20 minutes long.
Yeah, it got made into a direct-to-TV thing, and then Netflix picked it up and remade it, which is what you can see now.
Is this a machinima sort of deal?
No,
It's
it's people.
it's
it's
live
people.
action, and then it has in-game like scenes. They do like little emotes and stuff.
I want
in
to
the
point out the
actual
Rotten
engine.
Tomatoes rating is a 100%
It's
based on
pretty
6
ratings.
reviews.
It's better than
people?
Citizen Kane now.
Okay.
I don't know if you're gonna have the context for the actual in-game stuff.
Hey,
But-
we're jumping in it. We're jumping in it. This is a bad pick. I had to do it.
No, you didn't.
It's an interesting
No,
pick. I'll give you that. Would
No,
never
you
have
didn't have
guessed.
to do it.
This is not a terrible pick. I don't think it's gonna be one of the worst things that's on the list. I think that
I'm
you're
a
probably
bad
gonna
man.
find
is what
it.
you're saying.
I will come back for this show, I think, because I've already watched it and I don't have to do any of the homework.
Nice.
I think that you are going to find it cheesy. It will probably end up in the mid-zone somewhere, I think above Legend of the Crystals, probably not past the TCG,
Mark
which is
my
a very
words.
small window.
I am going to force all of you to watch Final Fantasy Unlimited, the original anime series.
Oh,
All
don't worry.
26 episodes.
I'm down. Don't
Stop
worry.
threatening me.
We're watching that. All 25 episodes of Final Fantasy Unlimited.
Stop. Stop threatening me.
I wanted something light. I wanted something simple. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, you
We're
got
gonna-
something light, Dad of Light.
Damn it.
The daddest of lights.
Thanks for having me.
So, thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been our 2-part series on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Remako. You can go ahead and get in touch with the show if you have feedback at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast at gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. How did I not name these Remako? Damn it. Thank you, ZP.
Dat Bara.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Good to hear from you guys as always.
Thank you, M.
I almost got the whole list remodeled, and I will someday do that, actually.
And thank you, listeners. Till next time, peace.